what are some of the things that you did to make yourself get the A1, to help you get the A1. And then you said this, you thoroughly understood your notes such that it's beyond memorization. So what do you mean by that?
Okay, so what I mean by that is that before you sit for the exam, you have to make sure your understanding of the content is to a level where you feel like you can teach it in a certain way. Like a teacher teaching bio can't memorize the content before they give the lesson. They have to make sure that they already have thoroughly understood it so that they can explain it, so that it's not something that you have to think hard and recall like word for word. It's just something that you understand and it's like at the back of your head. You can easily pull the information out to explain it. And I think why this was like so important that you reach this level of understanding is because the questions, like not most of the questions aren't just going to ask you to write things out word for word. It's not like all of the questions aren't really recall questions that you like. Maybe definition questions are like ones you just have to rely on memorization, but some you have to rely on your understanding so you can adapt to different scenarios of the questions coming out, because some might be out of like syllabus.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Okay, so basically understand so well as if you can teach it to someone. And that way it ensures you've gotten not just a surface memorization, but really, really good.
Yeah, it's like you understand it really well that the day before your exam, you don't have to spend so much time trying to memorize things word for word, other than definitions, which I feel like you've already got down a basic understanding of it. Then you don't have to memorize things. You can work on utilizing your time more efficiently on like memorizing like CAQs or like maybe patterns of answering questions, acronyms and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So basically your advice to students would be make sure the content you already understand so well before even getting close to the exam, so that you can, the day before the exam or on the exam day itself, you spend the time memorizing the stuff that requires hardcore memorization, like definition questions.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I
Stuff
agree
like
with that.
And I also think that understanding is so important so that it gives you confidence the day of the paper. And it is just so much more time efficient when you do the paper. You don't have to waste time thinking something word for word, and also so you can adapt to like more difficult questions that require a higher level of thinking. It's like you have to like, it's not directly what you learn, but you have to make connections, like indirect connections, to be able to answer the questions.
Yeah, that's right. Understanding makes you more confident. And it also helps you with the application questions.
Yeah.
For sure. Now we understand understanding is so important, right? It's basically the secret to success for bio. Yeah, actually that's a good point, because most people think that bio is just memorize, right? Just brute force memorize. But you're trying to say that no, that's not the A1 way.
Yeah, I used to like just memorize and then blurt out everything on my paper, but I never used to finish my papers.
Oh.
So understanding is, and like when you have your WA1s, they will give you questions that require more memorization skills, but when you reach prelims and your O levels, they'll give you questions that are more indirect, and you're not really sure where to get what information to blurt down. So you have to have that understanding to adapt to those questions.
So if we just brute force memorize, then we will just spam everything.
Yeah.
And we won't have enough time to write or rather we will, because we spam everything, we won't have enough time, run out of time for the paper. But if you understand, then you know, oh, this is what they want from me.
Yeah.
So I only write those 3 lines and I get 3 marks.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you dispelled the myth. And actually, I kind of hope that, I know this is what Cambridge is doing. They know people are very good at that. They know Singaporeans are excellent at this. So they are increasing the application questions, which is great. I want that. Then more people who just brute force memorize will suffer. And then only those who actually understand what they are learning will do well.
Yeah, they can like separate like the distinction students from the rest of the students better.
We've established that understanding is so important, right? How did you go about making sure you understood the stuff really well?
Hey, that's like a whole lot of
sure.
lot of techniques. So I think I used to use active recall a lot, and it's something that I also learned. But whenever I'm like revising a subject, whenever I'm like reading notes or reading my textbook, sometimes I just in pencil I just jot down questions on the side, And so when I'm revising it later on, like I cover the content and just read the questions. So it's like I'm testing myself on my content. And that helps you to recall your information in such a way that even though you forgot it before, you have to now use your brain to recall that specific information and to trigger those neurons to help you to remember those things efficiently. Then that will help you shift from short-term memory to long-term memory so that you can recall that information so much more faster on the day of the paper.
That definitely helps with memorizing, but I want to go more into the how a student can go from just brute force surface memorizing to, because if you are those kind of student, right, and use active recall, like you'll just get better at brute force memorizing.
That's true.
Yeah, I want to know how can they go to understanding,
Understand.
because you used to be like that, right? The brute
Yeah.
force. Yeah. Okay. Then you change to understood the importance of understanding,
Yeah.
and then you said you must be able to teach it almost. Okay. So if I'm a brute force memorizer, and there's this topic, let's say transport in humans, right? The heart and all that, cardiac cycle. A lot of people hate it. So I now want to transition to becoming a understander student. So how do you go through that?
So I think personally for me is that the whole cardiac cycle thing and the heartbeat is it's a long bunch of like paragraphs and like descriptions on how it works, right? So for me, what worked best for me is to read it and imagine how it works. Like sometimes I just have to read, and then after reading I'll close my eyes and sort of try and picture how the pressure works, how when the pressure in the valve increases beyond the pressure over here, then the blood will flow from here to here. Like you have to imagine it in a way so that you can understand what the words actually mean to the actual heart. So it's like when I'm reading it, I'll read it slowly. I'm a slow reader, but that's to ensure that I actually understand it and I don't have to memorize it later on because I already understand it. There's no point memorizing. So it's like I would read slowly and I would ensure that I imagine what I'm reading, so much so that my understanding of it becomes really secure.
Oh, that's very good. Okay, so there are two things which you said. First was visualizing. And this is super good for bio because bio is like physical stuff, right? Like you can feel a heart, you can see a plant. So when you visualize, and actually I teach my students this all the time, like every time we get to that topic, it's very hard to visualize if you just see words and a 2D image that doesn't move. So I always will show them the cardiac cycle animation and the heart pumping animation so that they can really see it. Because not everyone has that visualizing ability that I think we have, which gives us an advantage in this, but it's okay. If you don't have it, just watch those videos on YouTube. It's free, and then you can visualize.
But I also used to try and draw, which you taught me, to try and draw what it is and how it works. So you can just draw arrows and descriptions yourself. That really helps to make sure that you know what's happening.
Oh, that's so good.
Because you don't refer to the content that way.
Okay, so we got a very golden tip, which is that if you want to help your understanding, especially for topics with diagrams and physical complicated things like hearts and heart valves, then draw, visualize, watch videos. Yeah, that's the secret. That's one of a big secret to improving understanding.
And another thing to improve your understanding is to try and find the joy in the subject. And I didn't find that in bio so much until I joined your tuition. It really made me want to know more. And then sometimes you would also show videos to help us know a little bit more. That really rounded off my understanding of the subject because it helped me. One thing I always found is that in primary school, I hated science because they just made us memorize things. We didn't, I felt like I was giving a bunch of information to just say, okay. And then if I ask the teacher why, the teacher will be like, oh, it's just like that. Then I don't understand it. I'm just seeing things and I have to memorize it and blurt it out during the paper. It made me really dislike science. But once I joined secondary school, I actually took triple science because I actually found the understanding and the connections from the stuff I learned previously in primary school. So having that understanding and learning why things happen, it just makes the subject so much more interesting that you want to know more. And then and because of you wanting to know more, you have the desire to search up on your own and have independent learning. That already takes your understanding to a different level because it's you're not doing it because you're forced, but because you want to.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So actually this means that motivation is tied to how much you truly understand and believe in something. Because, you know, in primary school when they say, oh, it's just like that,
Yeah.
then you don't really believe in it.
Yeah.
So that kills the motivation for the subject.
Yeah, and you don't have the passion to learn
Yeah.
about it.
But then once
yeah.
you understood the reasons behind why they say you must say this, but why, right? Then, oh, now I know why. You have more motivation. And so it made you search out more of such things.
Yeah.
Like to find out the justifications for what you're learning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that increases understanding a lot.
Yeah.
That's true. Dang. So those students who are those brute force memorizers, right? I'm quite certain to say that they don't have this. They don't see the joy that much. If not, they would have searched it out themselves, right? Or asked the teacher in really understanding everything that is taught to them, and not just like, okay, yes, because teacher says so. And because of that, they have like actually way less info and knowledge. Like maybe you have 3 times the amount that they have, because each sentence of knowledge they have, they just accept it, like download from teacher. But yours is like, okay, I have that, but I have 2 more sentences that I thought of either myself or I researched so that I can prove the first sentence of why it's true, right?
Yeah, then you're like really secure for your paper.
Yeah. Okay, give an example, which a lot of students always ask. So, there's this common misconception. You know, plants photosynthesize, they make glucose, right? And it goes through the phloem during transport. But actually, in the phloem, it's not glucose, it's sucrose. It gets converted to sucrose. Yeah, so many people forget that. Then there are those people who ask why. Why not glucose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you ask these kind of why questions, even though it's a bit out of syllabus, but that's what gives you the justification for accepting that, yeah, it's sucrose, but why, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's the answer, because I'm sure people are curious. And it actually links to another topic which you learn in the O-level syllabus. So, in topic 3, biomolecules, you learn about reducing sugars. And sucrose is a non-reducing sugar, right? So that proves that it is less reactive in at least one chemical reaction, the reducing sugar chemical reaction. That's why there's no precipitate. Okay, so it's less reactive than glucose. So if I was gonna send you a mail a gift in the mail, right? Do I want like people to like go, you know, on the way it starts getting edited, like, oh, let me add a hi or in my letter to you, you know, or let me like take out one of my sweets, put in something. We don't want that, right? We want to preserve it exactly as it is. So sucrose, since it's less reactive, less chance random chemical reactions happen, because the phloem is filled with many other food substances, right? But glucose, maybe higher chance it gets modified along the way, and then when it reaches the destination, it's like, what's this? You know? Yeah. So I think that's why. I mean, I researched this also, and this is one of the theories.
Oh, but that makes so much sense. It's also something that you know previously,
syllabus,
that sucrose is not a reducing sugar.
Yeah, correct. So you see, now if you know this, like, we have so many more lines of understanding just for one line of like, oh yeah, because teacher says sucrose, not glucose. And that makes you, yeah, so much better at answering application questions also.
Yeah, and like, I feel like once you understand it to that level, you don't forget it. It's just, you can't forget it.
Exactly. The deeper you understand stuff, the easier it becomes to memorize. So, okay, that's my secret. Like, I have 2 secrets. Okay, this is gonna sound quite arrogant, but I was always good at bio. I never needed bio tuition. Why, right? Because so why was I naturally good at it? First secret is this, what we just discussed. Because I always wasn't satisfied with just accepting. I needed to know more. So that made it so much easier to memorize, because I understand how things work. The second one is just that I have an unfair advantage. Like, I just memorize stuff quite easily, especially for bio. So I feel like they're tied together though. If I didn't understand so much, I wouldn't memorize so easily. Yeah, so now, okay, a lot of the stuff that I had to study, right, especially during secondary school, I just read like 1 or 2 times, then I know already.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm blessed to have that. But for students who don't have that, then you must really make sure the understanding is super good. Plus, that's why I make all our memory shortcuts, so that even if you don't have that, yeah, you can still get a shortcut.
You can still score. That's what's most important at the end of the day.
Yeah. Sounds very politically incorrect, but I think that's the truth. So if you like that clip, click click here to watch another. And if you want to watch the full podcast, click here.